I guess we'll let Sue get her few minutes in. We really appreciate you coming up, Sue. I don't know
Yes.
why, you know, this is probably the worst showing that we've had
In months.
in this group all
Yeah,
year.
you never know how any attendance is gonna be at any event, you know, whether it's coffee hour or fair or this, I mean, you
Well, we
just,
even, you know, had this advertised in the paper this week, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't. But I will give you the floor and you can have whatever
Okay.
you like.
We're gonna come up there,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not gonna let you step down. For what it's worth, we
Yeah.
love you.
I figured since, I was at the Alpena Rotary group this morning at noon. And I gave them an overview of what was happening in Lansing, some of the items that were going on, or what I've discovered as to how it works. So I'm gonna use what I had written up for them because it's gonna apply the same way. I will try to take out the name Alpena Rotarians whenever I'm reading.
We'll forgive you if you don't.
Yeah, I guess, you know, in the 6 months that I've been there, it's definitely been an eye-opener in a variety of ways. I was assigned to the Appropriations Committee, and there are numerous committees under the Appropriations heading. I ended up being assigned to 5 of the subcommittees. I'm chair of the Natural Resources, vice chair of DHHS, sit on military and military and veterans, general government, and then also the school aid. So as soon as they give you the committee assignments, boom, you're thrown into it. And what I found, it definitely is a whole process. The governor comes out with his budget, end of January. That gets distributed to the House and to the Senate. The subcommittees in each group start delving into the budget, and by the end of May, middle of May, the House and the Senate each come up with their own budget. So now we've got 3 different budgets: the governor's, the House, and the Senate. So we then go into what they call conference committee, where the chair of each subcommittee from the Senate and the House sit down and get together. They try to hash out the differences. So sometimes there's agreement, sometimes there's disagreement. You go back and forth, and ultimately you come up with a budget that you're going to present to the governor. So we went through that whole process, and when it was presented to the governor, he went through and did line item vetoes on several items, but ultimately signed the bill package, I think it was a week ago this last Friday. So we do have a budget for the upcoming year. Now the budget that was created was $56.5 billion. That was up from $55 billion in this current year. I'm going to highlight a few of the things that were in the budget. One of them is specific to ACC, but this area feeds into ACC. They were approved for a grant amount of $3.35 million, and that is for the renovation of Van Laer Hall, including the addition of a 2nd floor. The funding is in conjunction with a match, an equal match from ACC. And what they'll be building is the Center for Health Sciences and Student Success. That will focus on doubling the size of the nursing program. This expansion could not come at a better time, as recent projections indicate there'll be a significant nursing shortage by 2021. President Don McMaster, ACC's president, really pushed hard for this. And so hopefully once the money gets over to them, I'm sure they've already done some fundraising, but once they have the match, then they'll be able to go full force on that. There were also funds allocated through the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund Again, these went to Alpena, but I do know that there were a variety of funds distributed within the 106th district, but the Brownlee Lake Boat Launch in Lincoln received $15,000 to work on their boat launch. Within the district, Sheboygan got some money, East Tawas received money, Long Rapids Township in Alpena, and then, of course, they're going to continue with the Burt Lake, well, I guess that's up in Sheboygan and Presque Isle, but the Burt Lake Trail. So there are some funds that came from that trust fund to this district. One of the items where they appropriated money in Alpena is the Starlight Beach Pad and Beach Improvement. I don't know if you've heard about that, but they received $205,000. Now that's been kind of a Rotary Club project where they had to come up with matching funds. So now that they've got this money coming in from the trust fund and from money they've raised, they should be able to get working on that. I want to point out that the trust fund money is not tax money, not tax collected from any individuals. It's strictly money, it's the royalties earned off of properties that have been leased to the oil companies. So these revenues come in, they go into the trust fund, and it then gets distributed solely for the purpose of park improvement, trail improvement, things like that. One of the areas in the budget that became somewhat of a hot topic was that of mental health. Within the state of Michigan, there are 5 state-operated psychiatric hospitals, all of which are located in the southern part of the state. One of those facilities, the Carroll facility, was built in 1914 and had fallen into significant disrepair. Most of the 47 buildings at the site have been closed due to being condemned pretty much. The governor was considering a rebuild, a $115 million investment in the Carroll facility. But it was brought to the attention of the Northern Michigan Caucus representatives, and we thought that Northern Michigan should be considered for this type of a project. So with the support of the other members in the caucus, I put together a package and did a presentation as to why consideration should be given to Northern Michigan as a site for the new state-operated hospital. In pulling together the data, it became very apparent that there was a need in Northern Michigan for mental health care. Of the 42 counties that we classified as Northern Michigan, 39 of those counties had suicide rates above the state average of 12.5 per 100,000. That included Alpena County, I know it included Alcona County. I think all of the counties in the 106th district were in those top 39 states. We were also able to identify that county sheriff departments experienced significant cost increases related to having to transfer an individual to one of these locations in the southern part of the state. The costs such as additional wages, overtime, vehicle expense, the mileage, and at times overnight accommodations. As an example, one-way mileage from Ontonagon to the Carroll facility is 490 miles and takes approximately 8 hours. So that definitely would involve an overnight stay. It should also be noted that Ontonagon was #1 in the suicide rate in Michigan, almost 25 suicides per 100,000. So that was significantly above the state average. So the day came, we did the sales pitch to the director of DHHS, and he listened. I think he shared it with the governor, and although ultimately the Carroll facility was determined to be the recipient of this $115 million, I'm happy to say that our efforts did not go unnoticed. Governor Snyder has realized the need for improved mental health care in Northern Michigan and has authorized DHHS and the Department of Technology Management and Budget to begin the search for a Northern Michigan location and to begin design plans for a Northern Michigan satellite psychiatric facility. So that should definitely have a positive impact on counties, sheriff's departments, and the individual who needs help, you know, the families being able to be closer to their loved ones. Other items of note in the budget, 115.5 million has been allocated for business attraction and community revitalization efforts. 46.4 million for the governor's focus on skilled trades, otherwise known as the Going Pro program. Hiring of 150 additional Michigan State Police troopers. 5 million for continued development of the Iron Belt Trail. 1 million for efforts to prevent the spread of chronic wasting disease. And they're also not investing, but setting aside an additional 150 million into the Budget Stabilization Fund or the Rainy Day Fund. With that addition, it will put the fund at about 886 million. With regard to education, there's been an increase of 1.9 billion in funding for K through 12 education, an increase in the foundation allowance of $60 to $100 per student. That hinges on what district they're in, but I think most of the districts in this area will be getting the 120 per student. They're also funding 2.8 million in the FIRST Robotics program. They have enhanced STEM grants, and the universities and community colleges are receiving increases of 2% and 3% respectively. Recently released unemployment statistics reflect that Michigan's unemployment is at 3.8%, the lowest it's been in 17 years. And then just a quickie summary of different, a few of the different bills that I've been involved with. The gun bill package that I was a sponsor on for one of the bills obviously passed the House, but it now sits in the Senate. It's been assigned to the Government Operations Committee, and honestly, I'm not sure when they're going to take it up. I don't know what's happening with that.
That's the island of broken toys and lost toys.
Yeah.
It ain't coming out.
Well, that's what I'm hearing on that committee. The other item that's sitting in that committee is the Legislative Open Records Act, and that was introduced in the House and passed back in February. Another area that I was a co-sponsor on, and this was recently signed by the governor, is the female genital mutilation bills, the FGM. So I'm happy that the governor signed that package, and what we did was try to tighten up the regulations or charges that could be brought against individuals who participate in this. So we've created in this bill package that it's a felony offense for performing the procedure, a felony offense to transport an individual for the purpose of performing the procedure, imprisonment up to 15 years, revocation of a state medical license for anyone convicted under the law, extension of the statute of limitations, and educational programs. The Good Jobs package, that was another one that was just recently in the House. It had passed in the Senate and then came over to us. That, I believe, I know it was sent to the governor. I don't believe he signed it, but it is expected that he will sign it. The primary focus of that package was to encourage business development and new job creation through the use of incentives. Outside of being in Lansing, I've had regular monthly coffee hours, visited schools in most of the counties. I've attended an Eagle Scout ceremony, presented Good Citizens Awards to local high school students, visited with local sheriffs, and spoke with deputies. And yeah, that's about it. It's probably better if I let you guys ask questions. I've cut several areas out that apply to Alpena.
I just
Yes.
want to make some comments.
Sure.
Larry and I are both General Motors retirees, and this Wednesday, our luncheon speaker is Dr. McMasters. He's going to talk about
Oh, is it?
all the new and exciting things happening at
Okay.
ACC, so I'm looking very forward to
Did
that.
I just ruin his surprise?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
The second comment, many years back when I was a precinct delegate down in Royal Oak and involved in Oakland County politics, there was a bright young senator, I can't remember, the state senator, can't remember his last name, his first name was Barry, and he was the author of this bill from the revenues coming from the Pigeon River area of gas, natural gas and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
And they have that fund, which is, which you're talking
The
about.
trust fund.
Yeah, the trust fund,
Yep.
it's not tax, actually, he was the sponsor, the sponsor of that bill, when
Mhm.
it got passed, but anyway, shortly after that, they went down there where we live, there's Bald Mountain Recreation, they bought like, I don't know, 50, 60 acres more property for that, in the Alcona, there's a marshland there, they bought that, and
Mhm.
all this money was to go and improve beaches and places for us people to enjoy the state of Michigan, but I was just gonna say, just if you hit that note, I said, oh, that's Old Mary's program. wasn't it?"
Yeah,
But they had a cap on it to start with, but then, and if they exceeded that cap of money coming into it, they would put it in the general fund,
Well-
but I think they've expanded that cap
yeah,
many times
the
over.
cap is at 500 million.
Yeah,
And it hit the cap a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
So they created another fund
oh, that's good.
where the overflow from the first fund will go into the second one.
Yeah.
And any money in that second fund is used for improvement at state parks.
Right,
So the first fund is kind of for, townships, local governments, nonprofits to focus on, improving,
yeah.
Parks and
Providing
paths.
recreation for
exactly,
all the citizens of Michigan.
yeah, yeah. So,
Anyway,
okay. Yeah,
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you for a lot of your votes. I appreciate you voting against the Good Jobs bill.
uh-huh,
And if you know what's in it, it's money that they want to filter back to the company with people's tax money.
any Michigan withholding that would be withheld from an individual's paycheck would go to the state. And then depending on the number of new jobs that were created, the money that was collected out of the individual's paycheck would then get kicked back to the business owner. So,
So thank you very much for that. So then I only have one bone to pick.
yeah, I had a hard time with working hard, having tax money coming out of your check, only to have it go back.
Back to the company.
Okay.
And I appreciate that.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out why is it there's always renaming these highways? Why do we spend the money to do that?
Well,
Because I've noticed you voted for a lot of, they're gonna label this stretch the Veterans Memorial and this guy. And,
the ones that I voted on, and I did look into them, the individuals who did the request were paying for it.
oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
so that's why I voted. Now, I did have a request just recently from Michigan State Police, from an individual who is a trooper, inquiring about renaming a highway. And he sent the email to the office. So I've got Travis looking into it because what I'm not sure of is if it's standard practice that the group requesting it funds it.
Okay.
So I don't know where we stand, with this one being state police, what might happen.
I can live with that, though, if they're gonna pay for it.
They paid, yes.
I have a question. We're talking about state-run psychiatric hospitals, but the state of Michigan went and closed. Newberry was up in the UP.
Oh, yeah.
They closed all these hospitals, even in Petoskey, in northern Michigan, Lockwood Hospital. All these hospitals in the area had closed their behavioral, now they call it behavioral health unit.
Yeah.
So
Why?
why, but two, what is the reasoning to want to establish a government-run psychiatric hospital? What are they looking to do with that versus taking those funds, which when Jesse was speaking about that at that one meeting, you couldn't be there, my thought was, why not fund behavioral health units that are already existing and strengthen them in places that used to have them, reinstore them, because then you have better access to there. So I was wondering, what are they looking for these hospitals to be, long-term permanent care units, place, because They, look at what they closed. They closed Northfield, downstate, Plymouth Center, developmentally disabled. Southgate, that was developmentally disabled. They just went through, and that was during the Engler years, that they went through, they don't want nobody institutionalized. So I'm thinking, well, what is their vision to have a state-run hospital versus supporting area, what they used to have, behavioral health units, and they've been closing them.
I think at times they have difficulty getting, let's say, War Memorial, for instance, or any, Petoskey, or
That
McLaren.
closed, Lockwood closed.
Yeah.
They shut that down a couple of
But,
years ago.
when an individual comes into ER, let's say they go
Yeah.
into McLaren through ER, or Alpena, or down in Tawas, mental health care may be needed, but now they have to place them somewhere. And they struggle with trying to find, where do we place them? Sometimes these people are in ER for 24, 36 hours.
Yeah.
There's not enough beds. They struggle. So when they do have a location where an individual needs to be transferred, it just puts a lot on the family and/or local sheriffs. If they've got to transport them down to Kalamazoo or over to Carroll or down to Ypsilanti, that was the idea behind trying to get the satellite, trying to get the hospital up here first.
You're talking about, I understand, there's a difference between a behavioral health unit, so people can access them and be treated there. I mean, even Saginaw does have a little bit more longer care site called White Pines. So what I'm asking is, what is the vision that the government wants to do? Are they wanting to have a place that people who are so chronically ill could never be placed in the general population again? Because the trend was, do not institutionalize, which they went through and they wiped out, especially in northern Michigan, and closed hospitals and units. And so I was like, well, what's their vision now?
I was also told by individual with THHS that sometimes they have an individual who has the behavioral health issues, but they've also got significant medical health issues. And to try and get this individual into, let's say, War Memorial or a facility that could give behavioral health care, a lot of times they're saying, no, we don't want to bring them in because of the medical issues that they're having. So I think that also was part of it. The state can't really reject somebody.
Oh,
So
if they went
essentially,
to
they're
a
looking
state
for something bigger. They're looking for something to house
They just
and take care of multiple conditions as opposed to a normal,
Well,
behavioral facility,
Lockwood-
which we have all over the
Lockwood
place.
Center in Petoskey had that.
Yeah, they tore that down though.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
closed that down. They used to have that in Newberry. So I'm saying, what is the government's planning? Are they planning, they want a facility like it used to be in Northville and that? Are
Right.
they looking to have a residential, long-term treatment
I
versus access to behavioral health with medical health units? Because I'm looking
I don't
at-
think they're looking for long-term. It's
Mhm.
just to have a facility that's going to be able to handle situations, where a need exists from the local sheriff, from an individual in the community that needs some type of immediate care. I mean, if you go over to McLaren, where are they gonna send you? If you go to Alpena General, where are they gonna send you?
Well, if you go to Alpena does have, well, they used to, I don't know if they closed it, they have a behavioral health unit, and now,
If they have the beds,
you know,
that's,
so my thought was, why not strengthen what's already exists, so you're not having to build a whole, I mean, it'd be more, spread out more and build what's there, pair it up. Alpena is now mid-Michigan, that's part of University of Michigan. Why not strengthen their program and help expand there? Look at what was going on in Petoskey, they used to have that. I know Traverse City had,
right.
I don't know if they still do, but I know they have a behavioral health unit look what's already within existing communities and strengthen them, versus building one big complex. And, you know, because the thing I can see, Sue, and being a healthcare professional, who's going to come to work there? We cannot even get physicians to, you know, we're having to do what's called physician groups. Your ERs in northern Michigan, but I'm not too sure now that University of Michigan is pairing up. That's why you're seeing a lot of these small community hospitals. You should know that what happened to Sheboygan, they got taken up by these larger hospital groups, because these hospitals, based on the laws and especially with Obamacare and the regulations with your Medicare, if a patient is re-hospitalized within 30 days, they get paid less, because the expectation is you should do everything you can not to re-hospitalize these patients. And then so I'm seeing in northern Michigan the difficulty to get professional staff to who has a specialty, and even the adequate client, people to help service them, what they would call a mental health worker, where they get certified in that. So I'm looking and I'm saying one big lump versus, I don't know how effective that would be versus strengthening what was there that got tore down. I mean, or, dispersed.
Right.
And and then when I was told through with Lockwood Hospital, which was once Northern Michigan Hospital, which now is McLaren, Northern, was they couldn't make money.
Right.
So what do you mean you couldn't make money? So if they couldn't make money, is it because they couldn't get the clients there, or they didn't have the right certification?
Reimbursement rates, maybe?
If you're not certified correctly, you're not going to be reimbursed correctly if you don't have access to certain things. So I'm just looking at, build what you already have within the communities and partner with those community hospitals versus getting involved again in a government-run psychiatric hospital. Because, Sue, don't you wonder how did a government-run psychiatric hospital got in such despair? That was built in 1900s,
1914.
and they did not keep up with it, and they had to close 47 buildings.
Yeah.
That right there is a big red flag.
I think that
Let's duplicate it again.
that site is a 600-acre site,
Yeah.
and I know Northville State Hospital, that sat on a huge chunk of
Yeah,
property,
and
as
it's
did
no longer.
the Plymouth Training Center. And they just recently built one in our Ypsilanti or Saline area.
Celine, yeah.
You mean the forensic center?
Yeah.
That's a very, if you've seen the old forensic center, what they built, the new one is exceptional. The staff is exceptional. They deal with an ordinary group of people because of the forensic component of it. But you've got the University of Michigan there. You are pulling from excellent talent to service that. The staff, the professional staff, and the doctors that I had to interact with, because being in healthcare, again, I would know this and have to understand the use of facilities like that, exceptional, because where they're at, so that, so that's what I'm looking at. Is the state looking, are you looking to provide more behavioral health care, which they went and wiped them out, and thus you have a shortage, or are they looking for people who have to really be placed and cannot be out in the community? They have to truly be what we call institutionalized. That's what I'm wondering, what are they really wanting to address?
Yeah, I think that at Carroll, from what I understand, there are individuals there who are in fact going to be institutionalized long-term. But there are other individuals who are not that way. They go in, get the treatments they need, and they are released. So I would anticipate that it would continue on in the same mode, with a rebuild. So it's probably a little both.
To do two things, acute care or subacute care, and residential care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
One other quick question.
Okay.
The Straits of Mackinac fuel pipelines.
Line 5.
Yeah, line
Yeah,
5.
famous line
Yeah.
5.
Now, I've heard both sides of the issue, okay, but I'm leaning more towards that they need to replace this. And I'm just wondering, the latest thing I heard is that it's outlived its expectancy already. This pipeline, or I guess there's 2 pipelines anyway, but, and what's the company?
Enbridge.
Enbridge, yeah, now they seem to think, oh, this thing is good, it's safe, you know, but I'm a little bit worried about with these other people.
Right.
If it springs a leak, you know, and it could really damage Great Lakes, you know, which is very, very important to all of us. 8 states in another country or whatever, I'm not sure how many touch the Great Lakes. And but where are we on this? I mean, where's our legislature on this? How are we pursuing this? And
I guess I first became aware of that pipeline, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago,
you know,
being from Sheboygan County.
right.
That line, as you said, it's 2 lines. It's 1 line when it's in the UP. When it gets to the Straits, it splits into 2 20-inch pipelines, comes across, back up Sheboygan and a county line on the Mackinac side. And then it goes back into 1 line where it shoots smack dab down the center of Sheboygan County, goes underneath the Indian River. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but either end of the Indian River, you've got Burt Lake and Mullet Lake. So 2 large bodies of water, which ultimately flow out to Lake Huron. So, anyway, when the Marshall spill happened a number of years ago, that's what pretty much triggered an interest in this pipeline.
No great concern, yeah.
So, we have had, when I was the Sheboygan County Commissioner, we had several people come in. We had Enbridge officials come in a couple of times. We had another individual named Ed Timms, Dr. Ed Timms, come in and present to us. You've got Enbridge, you know, telling, you know, their perception of it. You've got these other groups telling their perception of it. And it's a matter of trying to figure out, okay, where do you meet? What's the truth, you know, between the 2? So, there's a group called Flow for the Love of Water. I've gone to presentations that they've put on. And that is a group that's interested in doing a total shutdown on the pipeline. There was a panel established in Lansing that was going to evaluate the current condition, I guess. So they requested that a study be done, independent study be done on the risks associated with that pipeline being there. There was to be another study done identifying alternate methods of transporting the oil or the substance in there if that line was shut down. So the reports were supposed to come out June of this year, beginning part of June. So I'm anxiously awaiting for the reports because I figure this is going to be an independent study, going to be able to get some factual information because up to this point, you're back and forth, back and forth.
It's quite a controversy right now
Right.
going on. But
So-
what little I've seen, I think they need to replace it myself, but, you know, that's the side I'm on now from what little
Yeah.
knowledge I have of it, you know, totally, but,
As it turned out, just before this report was to be released, it was announced that they're not going to release it. That they found out one of the individuals involved with the study, with the report, at one time had worked for Enbridge.
yeah,
Conflict of interest, but it took them a year to find this out.
yeah,
I've got some issues with that, when they've had a full year
yeah.
to come up with a report that so many people were waiting for. What happened to the vetting process that should have happened
Right.
way back when? So there is a public hearing tomorrow. In fact, there's 2, both up in St. Ignace. One is at, I believe, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The other one is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. I'm planning on going to the one at 6 p.m. It's just a public hearing. So I'm hoping to find out more information tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Okay.
Which one do you want to do first, Brian Calley or Article 5?
I can do the Article 5. I'm not really gonna have a whole lot of info for you.
Well, let's go ahead and start out with Brian Calley's, what do you think about part-time legislation?
Okay. I ran on that platform looking for a part-time legislature. The concept of it, I'm not opposed to. I do disagree with the way he presented it. And what he suggested was 90 days in Lansing, and then spend the remaining 9 months traveling about your district, meeting with people in the district, being there for the people in your district. He also recommended that for that 90 days worth of service, that pay would be reduced, I believe, to $35,000. And when I look at a lot of the people in the legislature, these are individuals who are married, they've got kids, they're not gonna make it on $35,000. So they're gonna have a job in that remaining 9 months. And if they got a full-time job in that remaining 9 months, they are not gonna be getting out and meeting with the constituents. They're gonna be very, very difficult to get a hold of. And if they're not down in Lansing at all during that 9 months, because they're working, they're punching in, they're punching out, who is down in Lansing during that 9 months? You got the executive office down there, and you got lobbyists down there. So, I don't like the way it was set up. Am I opposed to part-time legislature? Nope. But let's try to figure out a better way of doing it.
How would you set it up? Because I do know his 90-day plan, right, that one chunk, even I've come to conflicts with it. I mean, I like the concept, but that 90 days really
Yeah.
does. If it were me, no way, I couldn't do it. I could never run for office.
With the 90-day thing.
Right. I would have to completely quit what I'm doing now, go
Right.
and do this, and then come back and do what I'm.
Yeah, and you also have a potential situation, if you've got an individual that did find a job that's going to allow them to work for 9 months, are there any strings attached?
Could be.
You know?
Okay,
Then
so
you go down and vote.
again,
So
how would you
I
design
handle
it?
it?
Yeah.
I wish I had an answer to that. I do think that I guess I'm not sure on the time frame. I don't know how I would split that up. I don't know if I'd say, I don't know, 10 days a month, 1 week a month. I don't know, I'd have to really think about that. I honestly think that the biggest issue is reducing the wage down to the $35,000. I just don't think you are going to have individuals at that amount who are going to be able to run and support a family on that. So I would say keep it at the wage, and honestly, I'm not sure, I think it's 70 or 72, you know, in there.
Actually, I believe it's, what he cited was last year's figure, which was 62,700 and something or other.
Okay,
And then, so that would bring you guys down to 31,000 for the 90 days, because that's how much they get for 180 days.
the teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, I had a $35,000 or $36,000 figure in my head. So,
What's the goal? Is the goal to manage costs? What's the goal to put it to a part-time legislature? Why is Calley suggesting that at this time?
Reduce
it- I
costs,
think it was
streamline
cost.
efficiency. There are there are several reasons that.
I didn't hear his presentation when he announced it.
Well, I'm
on
just
the-
wondering, what would be the point of doing that? I can see having your time structured differently,
Mhm.
how much you spend at the Capitol and allowing you time and office time to spend in your district.
Mhm.
If that's what they're talking about, but I'm not understanding what is his point.
I believe that, you know, it was the cost factor, but also, you know, trying to convey to individuals, when he made that announcement, it was a big to-do, so to speak, up on the island. I think it was to trigger thoughts in individuals' minds that I'm working to get your representatives back in your district, talking to you, visiting with you. They don't need to be down in Lansing all the time. I think that was just kind of the sales pitch that he did,
So
get people on board.
I'm under the understanding that Michigan is one of few states now that still has a full-time legislature.
Right.
One of
And
nine.
that, I don't know what the number, but a lot
One of
them-
nine.
Huh?
One of nine.
Nine.
There are only 9 states.
And the other 41s are part-time.
41 is part-time or,
I think it would
yeah, or
be-
something, a limited time.
Yeah, I think it would behoove us to perhaps study these other 41 states and see what they're doing.
Well, just
And
last,
be efficient, effective, and cost savings with their part-time legislators.
last week I was talking to another one of the reps who had gone to a conference down in Iowa, Kansas. She'd just gotten back from the conference. And the discussion came up about the part-time legislatures. In fact, some of the people who were attending the conference were from states where there was part-time legislatures. And what she was telling me after talking to these individuals, it was kind of a roundtable discussion. She found out that the majority of the people she was talking to had populations that were
Yeah,
way less than the population in the state of Michigan, budgets that were maybe the size of Traverse cities. So she said there was a big difference
sure.
for some of these states in comparison to Michigan. I haven't had a chance to look into that because I'm really not sure which states specifically.
Well, like South
I think
Dakota,
Texas has
North
got
Dakota,
a part-time.
Montana only have maybe 500,000 people per
Right.
state. And they only allowed 1 congressman and 2 senators, you know, and they only have 3 electoral votes even. But yeah, they're very small. I can understand that people being a part-time legislature, but,
Even Texas has a part-time legislature.
yeah.
Right, she had mentioned that one
Yeah,
too.
Texas is a pretty large population there, so.
Mhm.
I mean, I just thought that maybe a fact-finding study should be done with these other 41 states to see what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And if we're
Right.
gonna go into this, to have
What's the
some.
best way to approach it?
Yeah, approach it or not at all.
Mhm,
Whichever way
mhm.
to go, but, that's
Yeah,
my
no, I
opinion.
do think it's something that's gonna be, looked into more,
Yeah,
for sure.
good.
Okay.
Oh,
Now we can go to the
next question.
kind of wishy-washy Article 5 Convention of States. I know you're not there yet, because there is so much information, but give me a bearing on where you're at with whether or not you agree with or disagree with an Article 5 Convention of States.
I guess the basic concept from the limited amount of reading that I've done. I am in support of that, I can understand it. The reason I hesitate to make a firm commitment, jump on board right now, I haven't finished my reading. And I want to be able to read, and totally understand it. So it's, like I said, it's a non-answer answer, but I just hesitate until I've read something. I'm sure when I'm done reading it all, and what's his name, Harold Reuter?
Harold Reuter, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's got a lot of information.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of information
Yeah.
out there, and I've sifted through many, many, many hours worth of it.
Yeah.
Watched videos, read things from both sides.
Mhm.
I'm for it,
Mhm.
but I can see certain reservations from certain people. In particular, the biggest reservation that I've gotten is how they choose their delegates, how they choose their commissioners to go to the convention. And that is a tough point. That is a tough point. But as a group that's supporting this, here's one of the things that I find fascinating about Article 5 Convention of States, their organization. There are over 1 million people working on this across the country, okay? 12 states have already gone on board with it. They started out in 2010 playing with the idea and coming up with it. 2015 is when they really started hitting hard, between 2013 and 2015. 2015 is when they started to get states fall in line, 2015, 2016, 2017. 12 states in those 3 years, hardcore hitting it heavy. gathering more supporters. So I'm thinking by 2024, we're definitely gonna have this thing, whether people hop on board or not. I think the sooner the better, though. I mean, I think we can all agree that Washington DC is a little on the out of control side. There are dinosaurs that are in there that just should not be there anymore. I think Nancy Pelosi has lost her mind. She's senile. John McCain's definitely been there too long. He's so ingrained. He's not even a Republican anymore. Come on, let's admit that. It's just the spending. The national debt should be enough to say, oh, you guys are messed up. Okay, so how do you fix it? How do you fix it? Well, this is a concerted effort toward the same goal. How often are you going to get this many people to agree on one thing to get to the Convention of States? The runaway convention myth it's a myth. You can't have a runaway convention. Anything that comes out of there has to be ratified. It's got to go through the ratification process, which 12 states, boom, it's not ratified. It's just well organized and well thought out, and the leadership that has taken over this role, Citizens for Self-Governance, Mike Ferris, the people who got the ball rolling know the Constitution. They know the background of the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the basis that the founders created this country on, and they are interpreting it right, in my opinion, and they have a solution. Because seriously, what else is going to be the solution that this many people are going to come together on and agree to?
Yeah, we all know
What else
that
would be the
there's
solution?
way too many strings attached. The federal government's got too much control, and there's way too many strings attached to where they've taken away the power from the states, and it's not supposed to be like that.
Yep.
The thing about this Convention of States, I think people think that this is a convention, a constitutional convention, which is, I know, totally different.
Yeah, totally different.
And that's where I think people shy away from it, because they think, well, they're going to go there and rewrite the Constitution. No, that's not what's going to happen. And it's going to stay the same, or they're going to at least try to enforce the Constitution the way the forefathers had written it and what the interpretation was meant to be, not what some judge on the bench decides he thinks is right.
Exactly. Bring it back to the original intent.
Right.
Is what we're looking for, hopefully. So, okay, I know where you stand.
Okay, I just have more reading to do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
You're always welcome here.
Okay, thanks. Fourth month.